right-hander Gilmes.
Well, Ryan Gilmes can be a strikeout pitcher once he gets his fastball first pitch curveball over, and that'll make his fastball better. But he's going to attack with his fastball in and off the plate and use his cutter.
Ball one to Marco Scutaro. 0 for 2 last night, but walked twice and scored the only run. And those 19 walks are the second most in the American League. Jason Bay of the Red Sox has 20. 2 balls, no strikes. Let's see how the Blue Jays counter Gilmes, because Gil's had a couple of starts where he's jumped ahead of the hitters early in the game, and then maybe third time through the order, then they start swinging really early in the count. And this is a very patient Blue Jays club, and now 3-0 on Scutaro.
Well, I think between Gilmes and John Buck, they're going to have to recognize when that starts to happen, and then pick it up after maybe the first couple at bats and know that they have to go to something a little different. I remember back in the start with Texas, he didn't really have the fastball that he wanted, and he ended up using his curveball a little bit more because that was a pitch that was working.
Well, the Royals are going to have to deal, the Blue Jays as well, with a much smaller strike zone tonight than last night, and a 4-pitch walk to Marco Scutaro. 65 beautiful degrees and a nice crowd on hand. We started on time at 7:10. Time at 10 presented by the Parking Spot. Easy to spot, easy to park. The Parking Spot at KCI. So Scutaro begins the game tonight, as he did last night, with a walk. And that brings up Aaron Hill, who lost an 11-game hitting streak, going 0 for 3. He did reach with a walk. 15 combined walks last night. Royals walked 6, and the Blue Jays walked 9.
Well, Gilmes wasn't really happy with that call. He thought he really wanted that pitch.
And now ahead of Aaron Hill, 0-2. Royals defense tonight. David DeJesus back in there in left field with Coco Crisp and Mitch Meyer in right. Jose Guillen is the DH. Mark Teahan, Mike Aviles, Alberto Callasco, and Mike Jacobs around the horn. John Buck behind the plate for Mesh. Chance for 2. Good feed to Aviles. Double play. Royals first base coach Rusty Kuntz is mic'd up tonight. We'll hear from him all night, and he kind of called that double play.
Play. Or Gil. There it is. Come on!
Well, no, the one thing that Gil did right there, Ryan, that was really, really good is that he kept his composure once he got that ball, and he set his feet and gave Mike Aviles an opportunity to get to the bag before he released the ball, and gave him a great throw.
Cutter for a strike on Alex Rios. Like Aaron Hill, lost a long hitting streak last night. He'd hit an 8 straight. 0 for 2, but he walked twice. Curveball got away from him, 1-1.
Be an interesting night between Alex Rios and Gilmes. Alex Rios is 10 for 15 against Gilmes.
1 ball, 2 strikes. That's a .667 average.
Two doubles, 2 triples. I'd say he's picking on the fastball.
2-2. Gil took the loss on Thursday at Cleveland. Didn't deserve a loss with 7 1/3 strong innings. Struck out 7, no walks. Gil has walked 5 all year, and that includes the walk tonight. And now handles a soft liner from Rios and faces just 3 in the top of the first inning. Trey Hillman's lineup last night, 7 runs, 3 home runs. Here's the lineup tonight, presented by M&I Bank, which has David DeJesus back in there in left field. Mike Jacobs will bat 5th. At first base, John Buck, who was the DH, moves to the number 3, or down to the number 7 position. And Mitch Meyer getting a start in right field. And the Royals facing, for the first time ever, right-hander Scott Richmond. Here's the Kia scouting report on the 29-year-old Canadian.
Well, Scott Richmond has a 93-mile-an-hour fastball that everybody's throwing this year. That 2-seamer, 4-seamer, you're hearing that a lot this year, and also has a curveball change, and its changeup kind of dives down and away from left-handed hitters.
Coco 0 for 4, but walked again last night. That's 15 for him. 3rd most in the American League. Working with an on-base percentage right around 370. 1-2. Mentioned that Rusty Kuntz, Royals first base coach, is mic'd up. We had a lot of fun with him last year. So we'll be checking in with him periodically. Of course, one of the first things you do as a first base coach is acquaint yourself with those around you, especially the other team's first baseman.
Hi, Lyle. Yeah, I get to be mic'd up tonight, too. So if you want to say hi to Mom and Dad and all that kind of stuff, yeah, go right ahead. Now, remember, we talked about getting hot on Friday, right?
Because Friday is when this Royals Blue Jays series is over. You've been around a lot longer than I have, but I can remember being around the major leagues at the age of 6 or 7, and I still don't know if I've met anyone who has more fun at the ballpark every day than Rusty Kuntz.
I agree with you. When I was first base coach, I don't think I would let him mic me. But Rusty's just, he's so into the game, and he's really a guy who likes every first baseman that goes out there. So he's going to have something to say to every first baseman.
Still 2-2 on Coco. I'd imagine there's some strategy to that as well. I mean, that's a way to stay in the game, talking to the umpire, talking to the first baseman.
Well, you just got to make sure that you're not talking just to be talking. You got a mic and you want to get some stuff on there. But with him, it's just all real. I remember those exciting chants that he had last year.
Slicer towards left, and Snyder comes up to retire Coco 1 away. Blue Jays defense. Snyder, Wells, Rios in the outfield. Wells won 3 Gold Gloves. Scott Rowland has won 7 with Marco Scutaro, Aaron Hill, and Lyle Overbay. Rod Barajas behind the plate. The Royals stealing a base against him last night. Willie Bloomquist in the first inning. Trying to get that running game going. And now DeJesus, who got the night off. Trey Hillman wanted to give him both a physical and a mental break, as his batting average has dipped down to 200 3 weeks into the season. Fastball had some good late life to it, and the count is 1-1.
That's that 2-seamer that we've been talking about the whole homestand, that a lot of pitchers have gone to that pitch and try to take the ball off the sweet part of the bat. And if the hitters, if they're going to be successful, they got to go the other way with that pitch.
If you had never seen a guy before, what did you want to accomplish in your first plate appearance?
Well, one thing I wanted to do is, first I want to know what his out pitch was. And when I got the 2 strikes, I looked for that pitch and make sure that it was a good pitch up in the zone that I could hit. But really, you just want to gauge the velocity of the fastball.
And David, on a 2-1 pitch, strokes it into right center field. 1 on, 1 out.
And then you rely on your leadoff guy to tell you what type of movement it had. So if he came back and said, we didn't have the advantage of all the video that they have today, so we had to talk a lot. And so here's that fastball right down the middle right there, and David just drove it over the second baseman's head for a base hit. And if David stays right in there, in that middle of the field, and don't try to pull the ball, he's going to be fine. But we relied a lot on our leadoff guy to take a lot of pitches and come back and tell us which way the slider was breaking, which way the fastball was running. And so then we had an idea when we got to the plate.
Now Mark Teahen 0 for 3 with a walk last night that ended a 7-game hitting streak. Because of all that video, Frank, and the scouting reports, do guys talk less to each other, rely on one another, as opposed to when you played and got all that information from Willie?
I think it's probably a tendency to kind of hold some stuff in because you're more or less centered on yourself at that point. Where we had, well, I think VHS was just starting to come in, and so we would be videoed on the road by someone at home, and then we say, okay, video this guy and this guy along with me. Then you can compare in your lineup how you being pitched as if you're being pitched to somebody else, and I think that the talking was what we had, and we talked together. Not only from a hitting standpoint, but when a guy got on first, all the base runners got together, tried to pick the pitcher apart, that type of thing. So it was a lot more interactive communication on the bench with teammates talking about the different phases of the game.
And it's not that there's less camaraderie or less of a team approach. It's just that they have more resources that they can find that stuff out on their own.
Just a lot more resources now. Guys can run back behind the dugout now and look at their last at bat and try to critique it a little bit. So you have your hitting coach right there that are more attentive to hitters now than when we had Charlie Lau and some of our hitting coaches. They didn't really get too involved with you during the game. They may do little subtle things, but it wasn't like you had to go watch a video, come back and say, well, I saw this or that, and then he had to try to figure it out for you. So basically he said, hey, just determine whether or not you made a bad swing because the pitcher made a bad pitch, or you're just not seeing the ball and you're chasing pitches you're not seeing. So it could be just your swing's okay, but you just, on that particular pitch, you either didn't see the ball or the pitcher made such a good pitch that he made you swing at it.
Full count on Teahen. No surprise that Teahen is in the lineup and batting third, but as far as the numbers go, nobody has hit better in the American League against right-hand pitching this year. Trey Hillman putting Mike Jacobs and Mitch Meyer in the lineup tonight. Lefties have done much better against Richmond than the righties. DeJesus was running, and Teahen fouls it away. A couple of guys with Canadian citizenship hooking up here. A couple of teammates on the Canadian World Baseball Classic team, although Richmond never appeared in a game. DeJesus running again, and Teahen rolls it to the right side. Aaron Hill makes a nice play and throws him out from his knees, and DeJesus did not slide and was starting to slow down on his way to third base, and the Blue Jays turned that into a double play.
Go, right there, right there, right there.
Second inning, no scores. We take a look at tonight's league leaders, brought to you by your Kansas City area Toyota dealers. And if you like strikeouts, you'll see them in this series. At least the numbers would suggest that. Top two teams in the American League. The Blue Jays #1, Royals #2. Toronto striking out 3 last night, and the Royals striking out 4. No strikeouts for Gil Mesh or Scott Richmond in the first inning. Ball 1 to Vernon Wells. 0 for 4, 2 strikeouts last night. Hit hard to left field to Jesus, unable to cut it off. And Vernon Wells to second base with his 7th double of the year. There's certain baseball terms that come up, Frank. One of them is getting on top of the ball.
Well, Vernon Wells likes the ball up, and he had a high cutter that stayed out over the plate, and he just really hooked it back down in the left field corner. But he's a free swinger. He likes first pitch fastball, but that ball just stayed right up in the middle of the plate, and he had a great swing at it.
So a runner at second for Adam Lind, who had the only RBI for Toronto last night, a first inning single that scored Scudero against Bannister, and then that was it. Told you last night that Adam Lind is one of the best in the American League at seeing pitches per at bat. Only Nick Swisher on average sees more pitches per at bat than Adam Lind, so he's really going to work the pitcher over. And a fastball at 94 thrown right by Lind. 0-2.
Well, he's one of those guys too, Ryan, that bat stays in the hitting zone a long time, so he's probably able to foul off a lot of those tough pitches on the outer half.
Did he go around? No swing. James Hoy is the umpire at third base.
That was a real good pitch by Gil right there. He took his curveball, so rather than just throwing that get me over curveball, he really spiked it in the ground and tried to get a check swing. That's when you really go for the strikeout right there.
Two and two. 25 strikeouts for Mesh and 28 in a third innings. That's 8th in the American League. And that time the curveball in for a called third strike, and Gil gets his first of the game. So Lind does not advance Wells. Joel Goldberg, where are you?
Fountains and things a little nicer tonight. The crowd is hanging out. The weather is better. Brian Bannister talked about how the weather affected him and almost effectively wild, but he struggled with it last night. He could sense the other team's frustration, the Blue Jays' frustration. I talked to Lyle Overbay about that. He said, I don't know what was wrong with him. His pitches looked awfully good to me because I couldn't hit it. But bottom line, the weather did affect things last night. Cito Gaston saying, hey, both teams have to play in it. We already played it in Chicago. Nobody likes playing in that weather, but tonight, definitely a beautiful night here at the ballpark, guys.
Thanks, Joel. I was surprised, Frank, reading the newspaper this morning that Brian Bannister said he throws his fastball without the seams.
Well, it's a no-seam fastball, and what it does, it just makes the ball go down. It takes a little velocity away, but it gives you movement. I talked to him about it a little bit during batting practice, and he said the beauty of the pitch in his mind is that he really doesn't know which way it's going to go. So that's why he was more effective with it last night. And really, when you don't have the seams, then it really will affect your grip if it's a cool night.
So we've heard of a 4-seam fastball, a 2-seam fastball. And now a no-seam fastball. One ball, two strikes to Scott Rowland. 1 for 4. He got the second hit for the Blue Jays in the 9th inning against Kyle Farnsworth.
No, I've heard of the no-seam fastball. Dave Smith was reliever with the Chicago Cubs a long time ago, and he threw a no-seam fastball, and his more or less, depending on how you move your fingers, his went down and just sort of acted more like a screwball. And he was pretty successful as a relief pitcher for a long time.
Until you have games like last night, as Joel was talking about it, the seams can help you out when it's moist. You get rain falling all night, whereas the leather portion of the ball is going to become very slick.
Well, it's real slick, and you got to rely a lot on your rosin bag and really just blow it on your hands, just trying to keep some moisture in there and try to keep the fingertips cool. But the biggest thing is, he said it just kept slipping out, and a lot of times it slipped out in the right direction.
Just foul, still 1-2 on Rowland. In fact, Banny himself compared what his pitch was doing to like a knuckleball pitcher, where knuckleball will do something. Knuckleballs are like snowflakes. There are no two exactly alike.
And I think that's what he meant about not knowing which way he was going to go. And to a lot of people, that would be confusing. But to him, it made sense because he had movement on his fastball, and the hitters couldn't get used to it going away or coming in or going down. So he had all that working for him last night.
Busted bat, and that floats over Aviles. Wells had to hesitate to make sure it got through. So he'll hold at third. So a Wells double, and with one out, a Rowland single. First and third for Lyle Overbay.
Well, Gil did a good job running his fastball in on his hands, but Rowland is so strong. Even though he broke his bat, he was able to get it out over Aviles at shortstop for a base hit.
Mesh able to get out of the first inning with a double play ground ball from Aaron Hill. And then Scott Richmond got out of the bottom of the first inning. Kind of an unorthodox 4-3-5 double play. And now Gil hoping for the same from Lyle Overbay. And this is a struggling hitter, 0 for his last 11.
Well, Ryan, the Blue Jays have grounded into 19 double plays this year. So it is a possibility that Gil can induce a double play right here and get himself out of this inning.
Overbay is due. He hasn't hit into one yet. Two and 0. That start on Thursday at Cleveland for Gil, taking his first loss. At one point, he really settled in, retired 16 in a row, and then gave up 4 in the 8th inning. But 3 of them coming on a swing after he had left the game. Grady Sizemore hitting a 3-run home run off of Ron Mayhay, but 2 of those runs charged to Mesh. There was also an error in the inning, so the 1 unearned run. Remember, a couple years ago, run support was a big item for Gil Mesh. In this year, and it's still early, but in 3 of his 4 starts, the Royals have scored 3 runs or less while he has been on the mound. De Jesus to the barrier wall, has just enough room. Wells is going to tag, and the throw hits Wells. Rowland will stop at second base, and the Blue Jays take a 1-0 lead.
You know, Ryan, David did a great job there getting to the wall and knowing exactly where he was. He has his body angled in a pretty good position to make a throw, and actually made a great throw to the plate. If the ball's off to the left, to the foul side of home plate, he probably had a shot at getting Rowland at the plate right there. See, David knows exactly where the wall is, and you know, the one thing you might want to point in that says, if you watch this throw coming home, you watch John Buck. He's on the infield side of of home plate. When the ball's in foul territory, he probably should have been on the foul side.
So runner at second, and now ball one on Rod Barajas.
So what I mean by talking about that is that when you sit up in that situation where your fielder's in the foul territory and you're in fair territory, it creates a situation where you have to throw the ball across the runner, and then when you do that, then there's a good chance of hitting the runner.
Rolling back in at second base. Similar to when there's a bunt or a bunt right around home plate, or maybe a ball on a swing and a miss gets away from the catcher, and there has to be that communication established between the catcher and the first baseman, inside or outside.
Well, the first baseman is going to watch the catcher, and if the catcher goes inside, he's going to get inside. If the ball rolls off in the foul territory, he's going to get on the outside, on the foul side of first base. Of course, he's got to be a little more careful on this side because that's also the running lane, for the base runner.
So you're saying that's something that should be established ahead of time, that anytime there's a sacrifice fly in foul territory, that it should be understood that the catcher is going to be set up in foul territory.
Well, otherwise you make the throw longer. And in that situation there, the ball actually went back into the runner because John was on the infield side.
Second walk given up by Mesh. This week on Fox Saturday Baseball, Grady Sizemore and the Indians head to Detroit to take on Miguel Cabrera and the Tigers. Fox Saturday Baseball this week at a special time of 2:30 following This Week in Baseball, which is at 2 o'clock. It's coming up on Saturday. So rolling at second, Barajas at first, and the number 9 hitter, 21-year-old Travis Snyder, 0 for 3 last night. And that gets away from Buck and moves 2 runners into scoring position. It'll be a pass ball charged to Buck.
Well, this ball here just cuts right off the end of John's glove to the inside. It just barely went off the tip. Just kept moving away and probably had late movement on it and just couldn't keep up with it.
I wonder if a guy like Gil Mesh, who has excellent control, is harder to adjust to on a pitch like that than, say, maybe a younger guy that's all over the place and the catcher's always ready for a pitch that might not hit the spot. And because I think more times than not, John Buck set up on the outside corner, he's confident that ball is going to be right there.
Well, with a veteran guy on the mound, that's what you like to have, and also it's great for your middle infielders when the catcher sits up and the pitcher's consistently hitting that spot, then they're going to get better jumps on balls off the bat also.
One ball, 2 strikes. Good fastball at 94. Bill saying before the game that he feels good, but because of all the cold weather, he hasn't quite gotten his fastball to the velocity that he's more accustomed to in the warmer weather games. 94, 95, 96. He's got a good fastball tonight. And Buck blocks the curveball. It's 2-2.
Yeah, he threw that fastball right by Snyder. His swing looked a little long on that pitch. A lot of times when you see that, you might want to go back to it again on the outer half and stay with the same pitch until so he can actually, Travis can actually show you that he can reach that pitch.
Hey, there's a B-2 stealth bomber. Did you notice that? I didn't notice that. Just foul. Well, you can go ahead and have my tax money. That big old bat flies across the sky and nobody notices. Of course, they are stationed at Whiteman Air Force Base, not far from Kansas City. Have you and I done a caravan together where we've gone up in the cockpit of the V2?
Yes, and you have to be real small.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a lot of room in there.
Still 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Well, Gill went back with a 95-mile-an-hour fastball to Snyder, and he was late on it and hit it foul down the left field line. So that tells me that Gill's fastball is good enough right now to beat Snyder.
Rolling at third, Barajas at second. Both just moved up on a pass ball. And a 2-2. Just missed the inside.
Well, Gill had gone away, and he came inside with a breaking ball. Then he tried to sneak a fastball in the inner half.
John Buck calling timeout before Gill was ready to deliver the pitch. A run home for the Jays in the second inning on a sac fly from Overbay. Gill trying to strand 2 in scoring position. It's the second time in the inning that Gill and Buck have gotten together to talk over a pitch with 2 strikes. One of the many reasons why Gil Mesh signed with the Royals was because he likes catchers that are big. He likes big targets. Knowing that John Buck was going to be the everyday catcher when he signed before the 2007 season delighted him, and they've developed a great relationship. And the Royals' other catcher, Miguel Olivo, is no midget. A walk. Gil has walked 3. 2 in this inning. The last 2 hitters, and they're loaded up for Marco Scutaro. And don't let Scutaro fool you. A leadoff man. Don't think about him driving in runs, but he gained quite a reputation in his years with the Oakland A's as being a clutch hitter.
Remember, a lot of times when you get back to Gil Mesh liking big catchers or tall catchers, a lot of times when you throw a lot of high fastballs, it's good to have a big catcher behind the plate because the ball don't look quite as high to the umpire.
That's interesting because I've always thought that some umpires, they just hone in on one strike zone and they don't take into account the size of the hitter, because you know a pitch across the belt to Marco Scutaro is going to be in a different spot across the belt to someone like, say, Frank Thomas.
Well, definitely true on that one. But I think it's just more like the catcher kind of sets the strike zone. If he doesn't have to reach up and give the impression that the ball is high, then it's going to be good. It's going to get a better call from the umpire. Well, Gil comes with his knuckle curveball here, first pitch. And that's always a neutralizer, because a lot of hitters don't like to swing at that pitch, first pitch. And then when you get him ahead with a strike, they always think you're going to come with a fastball. Here it comes again. And a lot of times it's good to back up 2 pitches back to back.
Cutter is outside. 31 pitches in the inning for Gil. This could be a matchup that we look at later in the game. Did the Jays get the big hit to turn this second inning into a big inning, or was Gil able to hold them at 1? From 0-2 to 2-2. Jays were 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position last night. 3 balls, 2 strikes. So they had some opportunities. You see, 1 run on just 2 hits last night, and you figure they were just mowed down, but with all the walks, they had their share of base runners, just couldn't come through, and now they have the added advantage of all 3 runners taking off on this 3-2 to Scutaro. On the ground to Aviles. And Gill holds him to 1. It cost him 34 pitches, but it's just a 1-0 game. Gilmesh gets Marco Scutaro with the bases loaded, so it's a 1-run Toronto second inning. Could have been a lot worse. Time for You Call It, presented by Sprint. Who do you think will win the tough American League East? We've eliminated the Orioles, so our apologies to Baltimore fans. Red Sox A, Blue Jays B, Yankees C, defending champion Rays D. Text 432-432, enter keyword Royals, followed by a space, and then your selection. A, Red Sox, B, Blue Jays, C, Yankees, D, Rays. 0-2 from Scott Richmond to Jose Guillen, who hit 2 home runs last night, 3 hits, 3 RBIs. And he added 110 points to his batting average, which is a little harder to do in August than it is in April.
Yeah, right now it'll jump in August. It may not even move. Get a base hit. So the more hits you get early, the better off you are in September.
Guillen in right field last night. Designated hitter tonight. Mitch Meyer will play in right field. Just missed outside. Well, what impact has Jose Guillen had in the Royals lineup? If you like to go by wins and losses, when he homers, the Royals are 13-6. And when he's in the lineup, it takes a lot of pressure off of some younger players who someday might be a number 4 hitter, but maybe not at this point of their career.
Well, that's true, and the guy that bats behind him also has to have some kind of confidence they can get a base hit, because a lot of times they'll pitch around Jose in crucial situations and pitch to a less experienced hitter.
He's having some pretty good rips in this at bat, and maybe even more so, Frank, coming off the hip injury, you know, putting him on the bases, and he's not running at 100%. Guillen, Mike Jacobs, Alberto Callaspo in the bottom of the second inning. Couldn't quite hold up, rung up by the home plate umpire. Richmond strikes out his first. Scott Richmond has a great story. Graduated from high school in North Vancouver, British Columbia, not drafted. He spent 2 years working on the docks in Vancouver and went to a very small college, Douglas College in Westminster, British Columbia. Ball one to Jacobs. He played in a wood bat summer league in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. He was noticed there by the coaches at Missouri Valley College, an NAIA school in Marshall, Missouri. He was a 21-year-old freshman when he went to Missouri Valley College. Then he moved to Bossier Parish College in Louisiana. On to Oklahoma State. Undrafted as a senior. Went and played independent baseball for a couple of years in Edmonton, which led to a tryout with the Blue Jays. And played his first professional game with a major league affiliate at the age of 28. So 10 years from his senior year of high school until he signed with the Blue Jays. And in that same year, he got to the big leagues. So this is not your first round draft pick that was rushed to the big leagues.
This is a pitcher and a player that really is going to relish the opportunity to play in the major leagues. I don't think anyone's can ever say that they like being in the major league better than this guy.
So 2 down now. Alberto Callaspo, and with more on him, here's Joel.
Well, guys, no one may know Alberto as far as his talents go better than Marco Scutero. He says that Alberto has always been able to hit it. If you let him play every single day, he's pretty sure he's going to be a 300 hitter in the majors. Never been teammates, didn't grow up together, but they faced each other just about every single year in winter ball. He said one year Alberto was the batting champ. He was the batting champ in the postseason. Now, if the name Marco Scutero sounds Italian, his dad was Italian, but Marco grew up in Venezuela. Could have played for either team in the WBC. Chose to play for his homeland of Venezuela, and he is has very good thoughts about the Royals second baseman, guys.
Thanks, Joel. 3-0 on Alberto. So he could have either been Marco Scutero for the Venezuelan team or Marco Scudero for the Italian team. 3-1 on Callaspo.
He went where he was comfortable. But, you know, Callaspo hit well in Double-A when I managed against him, and he also hit 305 last year. So I don't think that anybody could doubt the nice swing that he has, and his ability to put the bat on the ball, and his patience at the plate.
You know, this is best case scenario for him. Of course, it cost Alex Gordon going on the disabled list, but I don't really see him as, you know, your prototypical bench guy who is really strong defensively or really fast, or, I mean, we know he can hit, but he seems like the type of guy that his best value is being in the lineup every day.
I think that's where it is right there. You're going to make the routine play for you. Will occasionally make a great play, but basically you just want him to hit, make the routine play, turn the double plays, and then everything else that he does offensively is a value to the ball club.
I mean, look at Willie Bloomquist. Willie Bloomquist is a great guy off the bench because he has an excellent glove, he runs well, and really gives the manager a lot of options where, you know, Alberto is serviceable at second base, and I mean, he'll make most of the routine plays, but you're not going to bring him in to steal a base for you late in the game. But I guess he kind of has to be an everyday player to really appreciate everything that he brings to the lineup.
That's true. And you would also say that he has to hit to be in the lineup.
Overbay right near the bag at first base. And now the wind pushes it in foul ground. So Richmond gives up a 2-out walk, but the Royals are scoreless in the second. This is Colonel Thomas Weaver sitting in the Buck O'Neil Legacy seat tonight. Enlisted in the U.S. Army in June of '73. An impressive resume. Went to West Point. Served in the U.S. Army and as a parachutist, air assault badges. He was a Ranger, qualified as a Joint Specialty Officer, and now getting ready to retire and is going to spend that retirement in Kansas City with his wife, Colonel Ann Horner, and his son Jack. So Colonel Ann and Colonel Tom, welcome to Kauffman Stadium. Two 2-0 on Aaron Hill, who grounded into a double play against Gill in the first inning.
And guys heading back down to those Buck O'Neil seats, and you see, I guess, both colonels down there. Their son Jack, who I've bumped into many times here at the ballpark, and you see him in the Royals hat there, has got to be the biggest fan of not just the Royals but Fox Sports Kansas City. So we definitely appreciate Jack. He lets us know everything that we do. He's the best.
Well, he yelled up to us in the booth before the game. We couldn't quite understand him, so his mom, Colonel Ann, translated for us that this 30-year-old rookie pitching for the Blue Jays stands no chance tonight. Wow.
Jack, I'm telling you, Jack watches every pregame show, every broadcast, every postgame show, and he is just a diehard fan. And yeah, he might let those Blue Jays have it a little bit. We love Jack.
Yeah, he sent his glove and a baseball up for autographs. We got that for him. He's having a great night.
Jack better behave with two parents as colonels. I say that right now.
Sitting in that great seat that Buck O'Neil enjoyed for so many years. Right next to the radar guns. Speaking of those radar guns, let's take a look at the Roadrunner Turbo speed pitches from the first inning, comparing Scott Richmond and Gil Mesh, both at 94 miles an hour. And you can double your speed with Roadrunner Turbo from Time Warner Cable. So Gil has missed with 5 straight. Had some control issues in the first inning when he walked Scudero, but able to help himself out with the ground ball double play. 2 walks in the second, loaded the bases, but retired Scudero on a ground ball. And now Rios drives it into center field, but Coco hasn't played perfect. It's a long, loud out as Hill returns to first base. And now Vernon Wells, who led off the second inning with a double and then scored the only run on overbase sacrifice fly. Just to give you an example of how uncharacteristic this is for Gil Mesh. 4 walks in 2 1/3 innings. Before tonight, he had given up 4 walks in 27 1/3 innings.
Well, a lot of times that doesn't have anything to do with stuff. It just basically is trying to pitch to the corners and not being able to hit those corners.
Again, driven to deep center field. This time Coco all the way to the wall and slamming into the Fox Sports Kansas City sign. Outstanding play in center field by Coco Crisp.
It really doesn't get any better than that, being able to sacrifice your body against the wall. You know, Gil wanted to get a fastball out over the plate on the outside corner, left it, got too much of the plate. Vernon Wells really drove it. Coco did a great job tracking, and at the same time sacrificed his body against the wall, and got a good hurry throw back into the infield to keep the run at first base.
And a play like that really takes some guts because he's running as hard as he can, and for Coco that's fast, and you know that wall is going to come eventually.
Well, I think a lot of guys today have that comfort knowing that the wall is padded. They get a chance to go out there and play with it a little bit, bump up against it, see what it does. But when the stadium was first built, that wall was all wood, so that was before padding came in. So those guys shied away from balls like that a lot of times.
So 2 drives to deep center field from Rios and Wells, both run down by Crisp. And 2 outs to Adam Lynn. Struck out looking in the second inning. Gill's only strikeout so far. Back to Gill. So leadoff walk. 2 good defensive plays in center field. One of them great. The Jays scoreless in the 3rd. Royals baseball brought to you tonight by Kia Motors. To learn more, visit kia.com. By AT&T, switch to the nation's fastest 3G network. AT&T, your world delivered. And by Colorado Tourism. Plan your summer vacation at colorado.com. 1-0 Toronto, bottom of the 3rd inning. Mike Aviles leading off against Scott Richmond. Has given up a single to DeJesus in the 1st, a walk to Cayaspo in the 2nd. And now he gets Aviles, Meyer, and Crisp. Good fastball at 93 to make the count 1-2.
Scott Richmond's done a great job of running the fastball in to the right-hander and working the outside corner, and also running the fastball away from the lefties.
And Aviles down to the count, 1-2. Good looking swing to the opposite field. And the Royals have the leadoff man on.
We saw that so much last year when Mike first came up. It was really easy for him to hit the ball that way. That was the one thing that really kept his average up, because he was going to right field up the middle. It was a really good job that time, because the first pitch was a fastball that ran into the inside corner for a strike. Then he went to the outside half for another strike on the corner. So to go back out there again and Mike to stay with that ball, that was a great piece of hitting right there.
Ball 1 to Mitch Meyer. Appeared in the game late defensively for Jose Guillen in right field. Did not have a plate appearance. Another left-hand bat. Royals like to get in there against Richmond, who in his first 3 games, at least this year, has really beaten up on the right-hand hitters. Shallow center field. Tough play for Scudero. No play for Scudero. Great effort, but it drops for a hit. The Royals have 2 on, nobody out. Let's hear from first base coach Rusty Kuntz.
Oh, halfway, halfway. Stay there. Attaboy, Mitch. Oh.
In addition to his great enthusiasm, he has one of the better whistles in the American League. Well, what do the Royals do here? Lay down a bunt, could play for a big inning.
Well, they got the right combination of players to do pretty much what they want right here.
Coco lays down a bunt. Richmond's going to go to third. Got it. Before we look at the replay, we do know that Scott Richmond had a plan before he even fielded that ground ball.
Well, the ball was bunted a little hard and wasn't as close to the line as you'd like to see that bunt. So he did have an extra shot at getting the runner, the lead runner. Would you like to see your burner do in that situation is get the ball close to the line so the pitcher would have further to come? And then that would give the base runner on second a better shot to get to third base.
Can't quite tell. Here's the better angle. Boy, that's close.
They really can't see behind that left leg right there. A lot of times the third baseman would act more like a first baseman in that situation and try to make it more definite.
You know, Vila's foot was high, so maybe the call from the third base umpire, it appeared that maybe he was in position, or his foot was near the bag before the throw, but it looked like maybe the foot went over the top of the bag, and that's what James Hoy ruled on.
Yeah, he's got to make sure he drives that foot right into the bag. That would be your pop-up slide, so that goes right to the bag, and there's just no area in between your foot and the bag on the pop-up slide.
So first and second, one out. DeJesus singled first time up, and a fastball rides away, 1-1. Two balls, one strike. That was the count in the first inning when David stroked a base hit into right center field. Vilas opened the inning with a single to right field. He was down in the count 1-2. Meyer a bloop single to center. And then Coco Crisp trying to attempt a sacrifice bunt. Wasn't a bad bunt, but it wasn't a great bunt, and Richmond throwing out Aviles at third by an eyelash.
Right, Mitch has the ability to steal third. Managers don't like to do it a lot with left-handed hitters up because it gives the catcher a clear path to third base, but if he gets a pretty good jump, he's capable of doing it.
You know, I would think that play by third base umpire James Hoy, and even second base umpire as well, those plays at regular speed look so much closer than they are when you see them in slow motion. That's got to be one of the tougher calls for an umpire.
Well, and they really are, and they're taught to watch the play and listen for the ball, and because it's kind of hard to kind of watch the ball and the runner at the same time. So most of them say, well, our job is really to listen for the ball in the glove, but watch the runner.
Well, here it is at regular speed. This is similar to the angle that the dugout had. Of course, we have the advantage of going slow motion, and it appeared that James Hoy made the right call, but a difficult call at that. Back to Richmond. He might go to third again. Nope. He's going to throw out DeJesus. 2 down, runners at second and third for Mark Teahan. And speaking of umpires, Steve Palermo, the former great American League umpire who lives in Kansas City and is an umpire evaluator, is going to join Joel Goldberg tomorrow in Royals Live before Game 3 with the Blue Jays.
Well, he had a lot of energy too. I mean, he was a hustling umpire.
Well, the Jays didn't get that big hit in the top of the second inning, got just 1 run, and now the Royals with a chance to take the lead as Teahan takes ball 1. This inning hasn't unfolded exactly the way the Royals had hoped, but Teahan could fix that with Meyer at third base and Crisp at second.
Well, in the course of a game, you want to make sure you give your hottest hitters an opportunity to drive in runs, and this is a great opportunity for Mark Teahan right here.
Barajas really giving Richmond a high target, trying to pitch Teahan up in the zone.
Well, I think with first base open too, he wants to be a little more careful too, and don't want, in the old day they don't want to give him a cookie to hit. So if he gets a base hit, he wants him to hit his pitch. So by the way he's pitching and how far off the plate he's pitching, it tells you that he just really doesn't want to pitch to Mark Teahan right here.
Cookies are tough to pitch too. They don't have the same aerodynamics as a baseball,
but they go further. They sound louder and they go further. So what'd you do? I just served him up a cookie.
Jose Guillen on deck. Teahan might have the green light, but it's a 4-pitch walk. So as we mentioned earlier in the inning, Royals don't have a whole lot of information on Scott Richmond, but he is much tougher against the righties, and he's going to take his chances now against Jose Guillen with the bases loaded. Guillen had 2 big hits last night.
He had 2 big hits, both against left-handed pitching. Placido Gasson feels that righty versus righty, he's got a better chance facing Guillen than Teahan at this particular time.
Richmond able to strike out Guillen with a curveball in the second inning. Popped him up. And the Jays get out of it after the Royals open the inning with back-to-back singles and later get a walk. Still 1-0 Toronto. 1-0 Blue Jays as we go to the top of the 4th inning, and Scott Rowland leading off against Gil Mesh. 1-0 game. It hasn't necessarily been a well-pitched game so far, except when pitchers have needed to make a big pitch. They've come through. And
Ryan, that's been the theme for the Royals pitchers a lot this year, is being able to pitch around damage on the bases, and Gil Mesh has done that. Worked around some walks tonight that make some quality pitches, and on the other side of the coin, the Blue Jays pitcher Scott Richardson doing the same thing. You know, Richmond's doing the same thing. They just basically are getting the pitch they need when they have to have it. But you know, when you're pitching like that, you're only a pitch away from disaster too. So one of the pitchers have to settle down and pitch to their abilities.
You know, and that's a step that Gil has really taken since becoming a Royal. When he was a Mariner and he was good as anybody in the American League.
Well, he's good. I mean, he's got the stuff to be just lights out. You know, he just right now, it's never a matter whether or not Gil has good stuff, because he always seems to have good stuff when he goes on the mound. It's just whether or not his command is going to be there, and really it kind of starts with the fastball.
Well, that's a step I think he's taken in Kansas City, is when he doesn't have his A game, he is able to find a way to keep the game competitive.
And we've seen him do that on a number of occasions.
Second strikeout of the night. Rowland is 1 for 2.
This is a fastball here that Gil really blows right by him on the outer half, and he's really got a good fastball tonight. It's just a matter of just controlling it where he wants it, but the ball's got a lot of life to it.
That's the first time that the Blue Jays have had their leadoff man knocked down. That brings up Lyle Overbay, and that's past Jacobs and into the right field corner, where it is handled by the ball boy, who's going to quickly try and give it to a fan before nobody notices. That is a terrible feeling.
That would qualify as a blooper, wouldn't it?
I think it's safe to say, though, that even if the ball boy doesn't touch that ball, it's still a double.
It's definitely a double.
Well, he played it well, right? I mean, he got his feet, good footwork to get in front of it, used both hands, good bend to the knees.
Yeah, then he just gave a nice feed to the fan in the stands. First base very well right there.
No offense to Lyle Overbay, but if that were Coco Crisp hitting a ball in that spot, that might be a break for the defense if he was held to a double. Now, fan interference, and I assume it's the same for ball boy interference. It's not an automatic double. It's the umpire's judgment. Where would that runner have gone had the ball not been touched?
Right, and the umpires have an idea of what the speed of each batter is too. So, is it really not a tough call for them? But again, it can be a tough call in the right situation.
Barajas walked in the second inning. A 4-pitch walk. Gil is walk 4. Great cutter. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Well, this is really a bread and butter pitch for Gil right here. This cutter. I mean, when they got that cutter working, then that makes everything else work. Is then they can throw the cutter, then they can come back with the harder curveball, and the hitters will have a hard time trying to distinguish between the two.
That pitch has really been refined since he has become a Royal. Gil said when he was with Seattle, he threw the cutter, but it was just a pitch. You know, it was just part of his arsenal that he would throw every now and then just to let the hitter know that he has that pitch. But now that he's been with the Royals, I mean, that's one of the better cutters I've seen in the American League.
Well, it's very good, and what he did right there was he threw the cutter, which moved about 2 or 3 inches off the bat. Then he comes back with a fastball, and in the hitter's eyes, he still sees the cutter. Then the fastball can actually beat him in that situation.
Curveball is stroked to deep left and over the head of DeJesus, so Overbay will score. And back-to-back doubles with one out. Toronto leads 2-0. That didn't seem like a terrible pitch.
Well, I think that's that curveball that Gil really wanted to spike in the dirt and try to get a strikeout on it, but he left it up out over the plate enough that Ross was able to get the head of the bat on it. We had thrown him the cutter away, the fastball away. Then I think he really wanted to bounce that curveball and just left it up. But sometimes when you really want to spike it on top and you overthrow it and it kind of stays up rather than going right down into the ground, and you hope that John can block the ball.
So now Barajas at second base for Travis Snyder. He took a walk in the second inning. Curveball drops in for a strike. That's what you were talking about last inning, that kind of flip a curveball over to jump ahead.
Well, most hitters won't swing at that first pitch unless they really are sitting on it, but very rarely will they swing at it. And that's what they call a get me over curveball, to try to get your head right there. Now you can go with another one, or you can speed your fastball up.
And the cutter is inside. But as a pitcher, I'm guessing you better make sure you don't do that as a pattern, or an advanced hitter is going to sit on that curve.
Because some guys know what to do with that pitch. So if it's an RBI situation and you take a guy like Vernon Wells, you hang that pitch to him, then he'd probably be able to handle that ball. But some guys handle it a lot better.
Jacobs way off the line, but gets it to Mesh. Good play. Barajas moves up to third base, 2 down. Fox Sports Kansas City is now on Facebook and Twitter. Become a fan of Fox Sports Kansas City on Facebook and see Royals video and behind the scenes photos. And follow us on Twitter and get unique Royals news and analysis during the game. To find the links, go to our webpage, foxsports.com/Kansas City. So runner at third for Marco Scutaro, who still to this point is one of the biggest outs of the game. Batted with the bases loaded and 2 down in the second inning when Gil was fighting his control, but Gil able to get him to ground out to short, and the Jays getting just 1 in that inning. The big out for Scott Richmond was just in the bottom of the third when the Royals loaded the bases for Jose Guillen and got him to foul out to the catcher Barajas.
Well, the Royals might have some intel reports on Scutaro that he may bunt with 2 outs. Martin is really respecting the fact that that may happen.
1 ball, 1 strike.
You know, normally with 2 strikes, you see your third baseman all the way back, but 10 is even with the bag. He'll probably move back after the count goes to 2 strikes.
Two and 1. Blue Jays had trouble last year establishing a consistent leadoff man, and they made the statement before spring training even began that they were going to begin with Marco Scutaro, and now tied for the league lead with 20 walks. Buckled by that curveball, and Gil evens the count at 2-2.
You saw the get me over curveball for strike 1, but this is that harder curveball that forces the batter to kind of flinch a little bit, and when you flinch, you can't swing. And now 10 goes all the way back at third base.
Goes back to the curveball again, and another 3-ball count. Gil at 76 pitches with 2 down in the 4th inning. Barajas double with 1 out, scoring Lyle Overbay to make it a 2-0 game in the 4th. See the word Ted on Scutaro's shoulder. That's in honor of longtime Jays owner Ted Rogers, who passed away during the offseason. Rogers' name, and of course it's a fairly common name, but Rogers is all over Toronto. Ted Rogers owns the ballpark, no longer Skydome, it's Rogers Center. He owns the cable network. He owns one of the largest cellular phone networks. And his family now owns the Toronto Blue Jays. Passed away at the age of 75 during the offseason. So Gill, for the second time in the last 3 innings, needing to get a big out to limit the damage, and needing that out from Scudero. Got him to ground out to short in the second inning with the bases loaded. This time Scudero takes the walk, and that's 21 for him this year, and 5 given up by Gil Mesh. So that's a disappointing stat for Gill tonight. And Brian Bannister walked 6 last night, but keep in mind this is a Blue Jays team that leads the American League in walks, so they're more patient than your average major league team.
And that's probably why they have driven in so many runs also.
And now Aaron Hill, who has walked and grounded into a double play, and he drills it into right field. Toronto leads 3-0. RBI number 19 for Aaron Hill in his first hit of the series.
Well, Gill's getting a few more pitches up right now. Ryan, that was a cutter he left out over the plate, and Hill just served it right in the right center field, just hit it just like it was pitched.
Fans, this year you can purchase a new weekday play pack. We'll talk about that after the pitch to Rios. 4 Field Plaza tickets, $20 off concession, and free unlimited games in the new outfield experience. That's a value of more than $150. The new weekday play pack. All of that for just $40. Pass Tian, knocked down by Aviles, no play, but that saved a run as Scudero holds at third base, and the Blue Jays have the bases loaded again. This time, however, Vernon Wells is coming up.
Well, as an infielder with man on second base and scoring position like that, your job is to try to keep the ball on the infield. And that's the only time the shortstop really going to leave his feet is in that situation there. So Mike did a great job preventing a run right there.
And now another visit from pitching coach Bob McClure. So Gill doesn't have his A game tonight, but he's done enough things, I'm sure, to persuade the dugout that, you know, something's going to click and he's going to get into one of his grooves that he's been in his first 4 starts this year.
Well, I think they're going by the quality of his stuff. When they watch it break, they probably watch the velocity on his fastball, and then they kind of go by what John Buck has to say. They'll ask John what he thinks, and is his fastball still got life? How much is he missing his spots by? And a lot of that will go into whether or not they feel like Gill is at that point where they need to make a change.
Robinson Tejeda, who Trey Hillman has used this year to kind of bail the team out with a strikeout when the bases are loaded or a couple of runners in scoring position, is warming up. The mid-game fireman, if you will. Now, Vernon Wells has had 2 very good swings tonight. He's doubled to left and then came around to score the first run for Toronto, and then he lined to deep center field, which resulted in the play of the game. Coco Crisp went slamming into the wall, making the catch. Up the middle, and that'll drive home 2. Rios going to hold at second base, and Toronto has scored 4 in the 4th to lead 5-0.
Vernon Wells did a great job keeping the ball in the middle. Normally, when he gets in trouble, when he tries to pull, but he drove a ball deep center field, and there he stayed with a fastball out over the plate and drove it back through the middle.
Ironically, this was the first inning that Gill retired the leadoff man, so this could have been the inning where he really got on a roll, but Jays have scored 4, 3 coming with 2 outs. And here's the 9th man to come up, Adam Lind, and that's ball 1. And John Buck out to the mound. You get the feeling that that was not John's call. That may have come from the dugout.
Yeah, just trying to give Gill a breather, and at the same time give Tejeda an opportunity.
Well, Trey Hellman's going to come out with athletic trainer Frank Kite to make sure that Gill is feeling all right. And Trey is going to make the move. So in a 5-0 game, and if Gill isn't right, no need in allowing what might be bothering him to get any worse. And Tejeda will come on with runners at first and second and 2 down.
Wondering if anything had happened to Gil Mesh while he was on the mound, but if you watch after his pitch, he actually took a look into the dugout, and then he called the catcher out, and we thought John Buck was just giving Tejeda some opportunity to get more pitches in the bullpen, but Gil Mesh actually motioned for him to come out, so that's a good sign that something's not quite right.
Well, Gill had some back stiffness early in spring training, and then his back bothered him. The Royals just called it stiffness, not an injury, a couple of starts ago against Texas, and that's a veteran move by Gill if he knows he's not right, as opposed to trying to prove something by staying out there and making it worse.
Well, that's true. In that Texas game, his velocity dropped on his fastball, and you knew something was wrong there. And when that back is a little stiff, if that's what it is, it kind of forces you to throw straight up and down, and will take some velocity off your fastball.
Well, a role that the Royals have developed for Robinson Tejeda is to come in situations like this, middle of the game, almost like a closer, trying to get the team out of a jam in the middle innings, 4th, 5th, and 6th. He inherits a 1-0 count to Adam Lind. And now 2 balls, no strike. Lind is the 9th man to come up. Blue Jays have scored 4 and lead 5-0. 3 balls, no strikes. Gill going 3 2/3 innings. That's his shortest outing in over a year. April 22nd against Cleveland, he went 3 1/3. That wasn't because of his back. He'd given up 8 runs, 9 hits in that game. On a 3-0 pitch, Adam Lind pops it up to the right side, and Mike Jacobs makes the catch. The Jays bat 9, score 4, and have a 5-0 lead.
Doing all right?
Yeah, we did that.
Okay, now ball down the line, what do you look for? The umpire, yeah. If both hands go straight up, what does that mean?
It's foul.
Yeah, and if he points fair, then you got to let it go. So make sure the ball's down the line. Just look at him first, because you can always run after the ball, right?
That's true.
Okay. But next time that happens, I want you to throw Lyle Overbay out at second base, okay? Just come up throwing. All right?
All right.
Okay, we'll try to trick him. Pretend you're the right fielder, all right?
How great is that?
That's a great way to make a kid feel good.
Oh, man. If you just joined us, in that 4-run top of the 4th for the Jays, Lyle Overbay hit a fair ball over first. And the Royals ball boy in right field fielded a live ball, which was called, I guess, ball boy interference. And Overbay ended up with a double, and that was Rusty Kuntz's attempt, and I think successful at lifting the kid's spirits. Mike Jacobs down on 3 pitches, strikes out for the second time tonight, and that's 3 for Scott Richmond. Royals baseball brought to you tonight by Lumiere Place Casino and Hotel, presenting the Go Blue and St. Louis sweepstakes. One lucky winner will be at the Royals-Cardinals game on May the 23rd. And enjoy beautiful accommodations at Lumiere Place Casino and Hotels. Register now at goblueandstlouis.com. Had a chance to visit Lumiere last year when the Royals were in St. Louis. Brand new casino and some great restaurants. And right in downtown, very close to the ballpark. 1-1 on Alberto Callaspo, walked in the second inning. Callaspo with a Royals season high 10-game hitting streak. The Royals having a tough time so far against Scott Richmond. Appeared to have something going in the third inning. Back-to-back singles. And then with 2 outs, a walk. Richmond made a good pitch on Jose Guillen, got him to foul out to the catcher. 2-2 on Callaspo. Robinson Cano and Nick Markakis. They lead the American League as far as current hitting streaks, then Mike Lowell, and then Alberto Callaspo. Up the middle, but Scudero was favoring the middle, and he throws out Callaspo 2 down in the 4th inning, and Richmond doing exactly what his manager wants him to do. His team gets him 4 runs, get that defense back in the dugout. Kauffman Stadium favorite is back to help kick off your weekend. Independence Honda Buck Night at Hy-Vee Pepsi Fireworks coming up Friday, May the 15th with the Baltimore Orioles in town. It's a 7:10 game. Gates to the new outfield experience open at 4 p.m. So come out early and start the weekend early. Again, that's May the 15th. Buck Night and fireworks. Ball 1 on John Buck. Fouled out to first in the 2nd inning. Two 2-0. John Buck 0 for his last 12. Has a good hitter's count. But Richmond got one in on the fist, 2-1.
He's got that good runner working. He's getting it up. What's good about it is he's getting it up around the hands and not getting it down low where John Buck's bat head speed is down low middle end. He's just staying up on his hands and trying to really crowd him with that two-seamer. We call it sinker, two-seamer.
Not anymore, Frank. Now that you broke that pitch down a couple of days ago, it's either a sinker or a runner.
A running fastball.
But the reason you got into that description is because some guys are just generally described as sinker ball pitchers, but that doesn't tell the whole story.
And no, because we described the 2 types of sinkers. The one that goes straight down is a true sinker, and the one that runs is a two-seamer.
Royals down in order in the 4th inning. Blue Jays lead 5-0. Outfield experience is packed tonight on a great night to be at the ballpark in Kansas City. So far, Toronto in front 5-0. And immediately after the game, we hope that you'll stay tuned for Boulevard Royals Live with Joel Goldberg and Jamie Quirk. And don't forget, when you're at the ballpark, stop by Rival Sports Bar out in right field and say hello to Joel and Jamie before and after the game. Great place to watch the game. And on a night like last night, when it's cold and rainy, it's a good place to go for cover, but not tonight. Tonight's a good night to be sitting in the seats. Scott Rowland struck out leading off the 4th inning against Gil Mesh. And it appeared that Gil was going to find his groove, if you will. was the first leadoff man that Gill had retired, but the Blue Jays turned that into a 4-run inning. Barajas, RBI double, Aaron Hill, RBI single, and then Vernon Wells with a 2-run single. Rolen is 1 for 2. He singled back in the second inning. So Gill goes 3 2/3, gives up 5 runs on 7 hits and 5 walks. And then had to leave with 2 outs in the 4th inning because of an injury. Didn't appear to be severe, but one that he called catcher John Buck out to the mound, and then Trey Hillman and Frank Kite. And the decision to take Gill out. Robinson Tejeda came on and got Adam Lind to pop out to end the inning. Rolen over Bay Barajas in the 5th inning. You know, the Royals have one of the best closers in all of baseball, Joakim Soria, who, by the way, threw a bullpen today, and apparently that went well. But the situations that the Royals are using Robinson Tejeda in could possibly groom him down the road for maybe a setup type of a guy. He hasn't come in late in the game, but he's come in some high stress situations.
Well, he's got the fastball. He's got the strike. He's got the strikeout pitch. That's what they like about him.
This is Joakim Soria earlier today, so this is a good sign. Prior to the Tiger series on Friday night, it was announced that Soria would miss a minimum of 3 to 5 days. This is day 5. So he's gone from playing catch to throwing off the mound. The Royals have not had a Soria save situation since he's gone down with the tight shoulder. So Trey Hillman hasn't been forced to make the difficult decision of who is my temporary closer while Soria is out. Rolen hanging in there against Tejeda.
Well, the one thing that Trey Hillman has this year that he didn't have last year, he's got plenty of candidates. You know, Tejeda's one, Cruz is one that the fans voted on that they'd like to see be the closer. Mayhew was in some tough spots last year to help the ball club, so they all have really been in that situation where I don't think it would faze any of those guys if they were put in that situation for a couple of games.
That's a fair ball. So down into the left field corner, Scott Rolen to second base to lead off the 5th inning. Make sure you join us tomorrow. Game 3 of the series. Zach Greinke will pitch for the Royals, going up against Brian Talent. Zach 4-0 to begin the year, a 0 ERA, and he has been quite the buzz in Kansas City. And now you can add to that. This is the cover of Sports Illustrated, which is scheduled to come out tomorrow, written by Joe Posnanski of the Kansas City Star, and there's Zach on the cover. Zach was a guest of Joel Goldberg's on Royals Live tonight. How's he handling that, Joel?
Well, he talked to all the media today, and we talked a lot about that, and Nate talked about it on the pregame show. Classic Zach. He said when he found out he was going to be on the cover, he said he was kind of disappointed because of all the attention that he was going to get because of it. He did say that you know, his wife was probably the one that might be a little bit more, maybe not jealous, but his fiance, I'm sorry, future wife, because, you know, she has always wanted to be on the cover, and former cheerleader. But he was asked if maybe they could do one of those couples things in the swimsuit issue. He said, no, that's not going to happen. So Zach ends up on the cover. He says he's read it for since about high school, but no, never dreamed of being on the cover, and I think he'd rather probably not be.
Well, as good as he's been, there are some who believe he can get even better. And if that's the case, that might not be his first Sports Illustrated cover.
Well, he was so bashful about going on and so nonchalant about it. I noticed on the cover it's not a face shot. It's a shot, of overhead shot of his back. So I wonder if he picked the photo that they used for the cover.
If you go back to last year, Zach has had 6 consecutive starts without allowing a run. And look who he compares to. Don Drysdale, Oral Hershiser. Nobody has ever gone 7 straight starts without allowing a run. Of course, Drysdale had the major league record for a long time, consecutive innings without allowing a run, and then Oral Hershiser broke that while Don Drysdale was a broadcaster for the Dodgers. Zach's is stretched out over 2 different seasons.
Well, I think your dad was playing on the team with Don Drysdale during that time.
How about running out Don Drysdale and Sandy Koufax? A walk to Lyle Overbay, and that's 6 walks given up by the Royals. And that's 6 walks in 2 consecutive games. 2 on, nobody out. Now Horacio Ramirez loosening up.
That's one of the strange things about the game of baseball. You could be going along so smooth and everything's clicking for you on all cylinders, and something that really wasn't a big part of the Royals pitching staff, which was walks, all of a sudden it's in the forefront, and there's no explanation for why that's happening all of a sudden.
And a strike to Barajas. Let me clarify. I said no runs allowed in 6 consecutive starts. The comparison to Drysdale and Hershiser's no earned runs. Zach gave up the unearned run in his last start against Detroit, but his ERA is still at 0. Barajas didn't get all of it. Roland runs back to tag, but DeJesus will keep him at second base, and that's the first out of the 5th inning. And now Travis Snyder, who's walked and grounded out to first. Five runs on 8 hits in less than 5 innings for the Blue Jays, so making up for last night's game, coming up with 1 run, 2 hits, and they were just 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position. On the outside corner, 1-1 on Snyder. We got to the big leagues last year as a 20-year-old. We've seen our share of 20-year-olds. Rick Porcello, who pitched for the Tigers earlier on this homestand. Take another look at You Call It, presented by Sprint. Who do you think is going to win the American League East? And the majority of you fans are going with the 2 favorites, the Red Sox, who were the wild card last year at 49%, followed by the Rays, who won the division and advanced to the World Series.
4th if they were on that list.
And then the Blue Jays at 13%. One and 2 on Travis Snyder. For a long time, it was just the Yankees and the Red Sox and everyone else. And the Blue Jays and the Orioles would usually fight for 3rd place. Tampa Bay wasn't even a factor. 8 straight years the Red Sox finished in 2nd place to the Yankees. Chance for two. Cayaspo, Aviles, Jacobs. So leadoff double and a walk. No runs for the Blue Jays in the 5th.
Oh, doctor, there we go. Come on, Davo. I guess that's why you work on that, right?
5-0 Toronto, but the Royals still have 5 at-bats to go tonight. But the concern right now, right-hander Gil Mesh, who after he delivered this pitch to Adam Lind in the top of the 4th inning, summoned John Buck to the mound, which led to Trey Hillman and Frank Kite coming out, and Gil leaving the game. No word yet on why he left the game. Mike Aviles singled leading off the 3rd inning. That's the Royals' biggest threat tonight against Richmond. Aaron Hill gets Aviles for the first out of the 5th. Here's the James B. Nutter pitch count on Scott Richmond at 70 pitches. He's walked 2, struck out 3. He's given up just 3 hits so far. But in the 3rd inning, Aviles singled, Myers singled, and Coco Crisp trying to lay down a sac bunt. Richmond jumping off the mound made a nice play and just barely threw out Aviles at 3rd base. And then with 2 outs, Mark Tien walked, loading him up for Jose Guillen in what was a 1-0 game at the time. But Richmond getting Guillen to foul out to the catcher, and that's his biggest pitch tonight. Travis Snyder gets Mitch Meyer. He's 1 for 2. Well, the Royals have 2 girls' night outs at Kauffman Stadium this year. The first is Thursday, May the 14th. Country Club Plaza, Macy's and 38 The Spot are teaming up to help you let your hair down with some food, fashion, and a lot of fun. VIP ticket packages benefiting Susan G. Komen Foundation for the Cure. First 10,000 ladies will get a stylish Royals cap. That's Thursday, May the 14th. And 0-1 on Coco Crisp. 0 for 2. One and 1. Five to nothing game, but Rollins still way in at 3rd base, defending against the bunt. Some has referred to him as one of the best ever defensively at 3rd base. That's saying something.
Well, when he was with the Cardinals, he was good there. When in Philly, he was good there, and some injuries slowed him a little bit. But as far as having soft hands and first step quickness, everybody says he still has that.
Scudero backhands, tough throw, no chance to get Coco. There's a 2-out infield single.
Well, Coco does a great job here on a breaking ball with had good back control. Ball was away a little bit. He stood in there, reached, more or less reached for it, was able to put it in play, and with his speed and slapping the ball in that direction, it's going to take a lot to throw him out right there.
And now a stolen base threat with David DeJesus stepping in, 1 for 2 with a first inning single. Coco does not have a threatening lead. Ball 1.
A 2-out rally right here would be kind of nice. Get David going and get the Royals on the board.
Now typically you wouldn't be running with 2 outs in a 5-0 game. The Royals have just 4 hits against Richmond. And with Coco's speed, Barajas, we told you, has had a tough time throwing runners out this year. And well, maybe you get just 1 run in this 5th inning, but get something going and hope for a bigger inning later in the game.
Right, that's true, unless Trey Hillman is really looking at that hole between first and second and maybe creating a first and third situation.
Not running. And a bullet is foul. Definitely foul. Two and 1. So the advice that Rusty Kuntz gave to the Royals ball boy paying off.
I think if I was the ball boy, I would have let it go.
When in doubt, let it go. That's what Rusty said. You can always chase it down afterwards.
The one thing he'll probably remember from that conversation is next time, he said, next time I get it, just throw the ball to second base.
That's one way to make the highlight film. That would have been great. I'm sure there would have been people in the Royals organization who hire the ball boys who wouldn't have appreciated that. But I would have thought it would have been funny. It would have entertained me.
It would have given us something to talk about for sure.
Hit hard to right field. Rio shallow. Can't get it. This is going to turn into a run. So the Royals are on the board. DeJesus comes through with a 2-out double.
We talked about last night how shallow the Blue Jays outfield plays, and David turns on a fastball right here, and really when you think about it, that's the ball that's going to beat the outfield right there. The toughest ball to catch is that line drive right to you. Rios froze long enough for the ball to get over his head.
And now Tien 0 for 1 with a walk. Right to Aaron Hill at second base. The Royals are on the scoreboard. And at the end of 5, Toronto leads 5-1. Pretty good, this Richmond guy. Welcome back to the Coors Light 6th inning. And the Coors Light freeze cam takes us back to the 3rd.
Well, Ryan, this is one of the most exciting plays of the game tonight. Coco goes deep into right center field with no regard for the wall and makes a great play.
Taking an extra base hit away from Vernon Wells and an RBI from Vernon Wells. And Coco has scored the Royals run, coming around on David DeJesus' double in the 5th.
Well, you have to think if he doesn't make that play and the way he hit the wall, Vernon Wells definitely would have had a triple on that ball if Coco hadn't caught it.
Coors Light freeze cam brought to you by Frost Brewed Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer. One on Marco Scutaro, 2 walks, giving him 21, which leads the American League. And he scored in that 4-run 4th inning. Tejeda's been in there since the 4th. He got the final out in relief of Gil Mesh. Got into trouble in the 5th inning, but got out of trouble after allowing a double and a walk. Escaped the 5th, getting Snyder to roll into an inning double play. And dropping down, lifted to left field for DeJesus. One down in the 6th inning. And now Aaron Hill driving home his 19th run of the year in the 4th inning, and then scored in the same inning when Vernon Wells drove in 2. .34 hits for Aaron Hill, leads the American League. Former first-round draft pick. Last year, the Jays signed him to a 4-year contract extension early in the season, but then had that concussion in June that limited to just 55 games.
Blue Jays hitters have got to be feeling pretty good about themselves as a ball club when you look at all the RBIs and you look at the batting averages and the runs scored, and everybody seems to be doing exactly what the Blue Jays expected from them, from Scutaro and the walks, and I think that is what you call a team that really feels good about going out on the field every day thinking they have a great chance to win, and they're doing it without some of their big name pitchers.
Completely different team last year, led by their pitching and not much offense. 2-2. Tonight's copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the Kansas City Royals, may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Kansas City Royals Baseball Corporation. Brian Lefevre, Frank White, Joel Goldberg with producer Kevin Shank, director Steve Kurtenbach. That's out of play. And a nice catch down below. The ballpark plays differently now for fans in the lower level that are used to those ricochets off the suites in the press box.
Yeah, for a lot of years they had the screen that came all the way back to the wall here, so the balls would hit on the screen and roll back to the field. So it gives fans a better option of getting a foul ball.
The smart fans in the lower level, when a ball is fouled back to the upper deck, they don't give up on it. They wait for the bounce off the windows, or maybe somebody kicks it around in the upper deck and it lands in the lower seats.
I think the smart fans are the ones that don't try.
You watch here. Bounce. You don't give up on it if you're down below. One bounce. Look at that play with his 40th anniversary jersey and his camouflage cap. There's another one. This one's going to end up almost in our booth. Sitting in the new Diamond Club seats. And when you come up with a foul ball and there's a younger fan nearby, if you want to make his week, there you go. Now you just got to make sure he doesn't throw it.
You know, there's one word to be used on a foul ball: scatter. That's my word.
Great at bat for Aaron Hill after all those foul balls. His second base hit into right field. 1 on, 1 out in the 6th inning. Scatter.
Just leave it alone.
From an 8-time Gold Glove winner, scatter.
When you don't have leather on your hands, leave it alone. You with skin elbows, skin knees, sore backs.
That's true.
Somebody, you end up in the bottom of a pile, bent over a seat. I see fans on hands and knees crawling through the aisles.
Alex Rios 1 for 3. Big inning for the Blue Jays. A 4-run 4th. The Royals, even though Gil Mesh had to come out in less than 4 innings, still made some quality pitches earlier in the game to limit the damage. And the Jays, they've stranded 7 runners in the first 5 innings, so the Royals are still in the game at 5-1. It could be a lot worse.
It could be worse, and like you said, it's a lot of game left, and if the pitching holds them right here and the offense can get something going, it could be a different ball game.
Shallow right, and Cayaspo couldn't quite get it in foul ground. And not happy about it. Nick Alberto thinks he should have made that play.
Right, he's calling it. He's calling it all the way. Takes one look at Jacobs again and comes up about a step short.
So 0-2 on Rios. Hill, the runner at first base with 1 out. Past third base coach Nick Leyva. Boy, Tejeda's made some good pitches in this inning, but the Blue Jays just spoiling them with a bucket full of foul balls.
Yeah, Rios has been a tough at bat here. He's hit the outside part, inside part. He's fouled off balls coming down and in. He's pretty much either taken for a ball or swung and fouled off some of the great pitches that Tejeda's thrown in this at bat.
Another foul ball.
Yeah, being 0-2, they're probably too good at pitchers on 0-2 because he's still taking the same swing 0-2 that he took when there was no strikes on him.
Long run for Meyer. Sliding into foul ground. Can't quite get it. Still 0-2. That's one of the disadvantages, if you will, for some guys who have excellent stuff. The stuff is so good, the hitters can't put the ball in play, and the pitch count goes up.
Well, he's got good movement, but everything's been away and out over the plate. Maybe a time that he want to come up and in and try to get him off the plate and try to open the outside up for himself. But right now he's just throwing too good of strikes, 0-2. And Rios is taking too good of swings, 0-2. He's got our guys running in the walls.
Finally gets him with a 94-mile-an-hour fastball. First strikeout for Tejeda, 2 down in the 6th inning.
Well, John Buck really wanted this pitch inside. He throws a two-seamer right here and just ran back away from him a little bit, but John Buck wanted that ball on the inner half of the plate.
Guys who have great arms, pitching in the 90s, and good stuff as far as sharp breaking balls. And when their pitch count is high, it's always interesting to see how many foul balls were a result of that high pitch count. It's not necessarily them just being all over the place and going 3-2. That's the case sometimes, but a lot of times it's just a whole bunch of foul balls like what's happening to Tejeda.
Yeah, it's a good indication of what kind of life he has on his pitches. And his fastball's got movement, his cutter, his slider, all of them got movement. And if they got late breaking movement, you get a lot of foul balls. In that case, when he throws that two-seamer, that sinker, he gets a lot of foul balls on the other side because the hitters roll over on it. So he's definitely in the strike zone, and that movement on his pitches is what's creating all the foul balls.
Vernon Wells has the biggest hit for the Blue Jays tonight. 2-out, 2-run single in that 4-run fourth. Two and one. Pretty soon, Mike McCartney, the Royals public address announcer, is going to start offering fans hot dogs if they start returning the baseballs to the field. Working with Bert Blyleven in Minnesota in a game like this, he would talk about how there were some nervous cows in the area because they're running out of baseballs and they're going to have to start making some new ones. Aaron Hill runs. Wells strikes out. So after all that, a scoreless 6th inning. It's been a tough night for the Royals, but a good night for the fans. A lot of young fans going home with souvenirs tonight.
He said, give me 5 and I'll take the ball.
Thank you, sir. No, these.
This is the 6th, and this is our Sonic Slam inning, and our contestant is Charles Hodge from Independence, Missouri. If the Royals hit a home run this inning, Charles will win $2,000. But if the Royals hit a grand slam out of the park, Charles will win $25,000 from Sonic and the Kansas City Royals.
Jose Guillen, Mike Jacobs, Alberto Callaspo. And this is the 3rd time through the order against Scott Richmond, a pitcher the Royals had not faced before tonight. The pitch fooled Guillen, who was struck out and fouled out to the catcher. But the Royals' only run tonight coming last inning is Crisp batting against Richmond for the 3rd time tonight. Single. De Jesus, his 3rd time, double to right field. So now they have a good feel for what he has tonight. And Guillen did not get a piece of that pitch. That's 4 strikeouts for Richmond, and he has really been tough on Guillen. Our next Royals telecast in high definition is coming up tomorrow as Zach Greinke pitches Game 3 against the Blue Jays. Sponsored by Time Warner Cable. First pitch at 7:10. Royals live with Joel Goldberg and Jamie Quirk at 6:30. Ball 1 to Mike Jacobs. He has struck out twice. So 4 strikeouts for Richmond. 2 against Guillen, 2 against Jacobs. (2-0). Jacobs 0 for his last 16. Hit hard, but right to Hill. And 2 down. And now Alberto Callaspo trying to extend that long hitting streak. He has walked and grounded out to short. 10-game hitting streak coming in tonight, and began the night with a .386 batting average, which was 3rd in the league. Now down to .379. How could I possibly get tonight and a year confused with one another?
You say I had a great night last year.
Aaron Hill, 360 turn to get Callaspo, and Richmond just keeps rolling along. At the end of 6, 5-1 Blue Jays. 5-1 Blue Jays to the 7th inning. Hey, fans, coming up on Saturday, May the 16th, the first 20,000 fans will receive a replica of the new K, thanks to Fox Sports Kansas City. The stadium is part of a 4-piece collectible set that will also include 3 Royals Hall of Fame statues. Get your tickets at 1-800-6-ROYALS, Royals.com, the stadium box office, or at area Hy-Vee food stores. And so Horacio Ramirez in relief of Robinson Tejeda, who pitched 2 1/3 scoreless. Lind, Roland, Overbay coming up, so he's going to see at least 2 left-hand batters. Although Ramirez typically has a pretty good balance, pitching to righties and lefties. His ERA was high last year when he was traded to the Chicago White Sox, and many believe that the White Sox wanted to add a good left-hand pitcher to their bullpen, which they did, because Ramirez did an outstanding job for the Royals, but wanted to use him as a situational lefty, which is not really what he is in his career. Pretty good balance there between the lefties and the righties.
Well, that's true, and mainly what you're looking for in lefty versus lefty is a little deception. He does throw a little bit across his body, so that kind of puts him behind a lot of lefties, so if he can get to the extension side, which is the outside, then he'll create a little deception and get some strikeouts.
As he gets against Adam Lind, who's 0 for 4. Here's Scott Rowland, a single, a double, 2 out of 3. Gilmesh went 3 2/3 tonight, left with an injury, allowed 5 runs, 7 hits. Tejeda 2 1/3 scoreless. And Toronto's big inning, a 4-run 4th. And plenty of base runners tonight on both sides. Blue Jays have stranded 8, the Royals 5. 3-0. Into right field. Meyer has it played well. 2 down in the 7th inning. For the best selection of Royals caps, t-shirts, jerseys, and more, if you can't get out to Kauffman Stadium, try the Royals official online pro shop. It's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get your gear straight from the source, the Royals.com pro shop. Several pro shops to choose from when you come out to the ballpark, as opposed to the old Kauffman Stadium, which had just one. Lyle Overbay snapped an 0 for 11 with a double and a run scored in that 4-run 4th inning. Also has a sacrifice fly tonight. 5 doubles this year for Overbay. In 2004 with the Brewers, he had 53 doubles, which is a team record.
That's a lot of doubles.
Passing Robin Yount for the team record. Good pitch, 2-2.
That's the pitch I talked about earlier with his deception and the way he throws across his body. That extension side fastball is a little hard for lefties to reach unless you got a guy that really likes to go the other way.
It looks like he stands right on the center of the rubber too. You know, some lefties, to get that added advantage against left-hand batters, way over on the first base side.
Right, he's pretty much on that first base side, which puts him really behind the left-handed hitter, and then he throws across his body and opens up the outside for himself.
Callaspo getting it to Ramirez quickly. He found the bag somehow. And that completes a 3 up, 3 down. Stretch time at Kauffman Stadium. Royals down by 4.
Oh, baby. Nice play! Ho, ho, ho!
Horatio Ramirez is taking a little breather after that long run to first base. Part of pitching is not only making a good pitch, but also getting over to cover first base on the ball to the right side. They're not so used to getting the ball from a second baseman, but part of it is it's court awareness, always knowing where that bag is, and that's a little fancy footwork right there.
Panera Bread takes us around the American League. White Sox have beaten the Mariners game 1 of a day-night doubleheader. Rained out yesterday. Mariners in first place in the West. Angels over the Orioles. Red Sox and Indians tied. Red Sox have won 11 in a row. John Buck belts it into the left field corner, but foul. Yankees wiping out the Tigers. 10 runs in the 7th inning for New York. Tigers had won 3 in a row. Rangers leading the A's, Rays, and Twins. 3-2 Minnesota. Justin Morneau is homered. And in the 2nd inning of that day-night doubleheader, Mariners out in front of the White Sox 7-0. 5 RBIs for Yunievsky Betancourt.
It's a great night.
What was your career high?
7.
7.
It's against the Tigers.
Here?
Here.
Did you go deep?
I want to say twice.
Well, then say it.
Twice.
Okay.
I think the pitcher was Mike Loing.
Went around. So Buck just missed. Belting his 4th home run of the year, but Richmond comes back to strike him out, and that's 5 for the 29-year-old. And as Mike Avila steps in, we'll show you what the Royals batting order has done tonight against Scott Richmond in the Firestone in-game box score. Avila's 1 for 2 with a single. That's the inning right now that stings the Royals the most. Back-to-back singles to lead off the 3rd inning. The Royals did not convert a sacrifice bunt, and then later with the bases loaded 2 outs, they had the guy they wanted at the plate, Jose Guillen, but Richmond made a good pitch and got Guillen to foul out to the catcher. On the ground to Overbay. Richmond has retired 6 in a row. 2 down in the 7th inning. Well, what a find this has been for the Blue Jays. We told you about his remarkable story of coming out of nowhere and not getting into a minor league system with a major league organization until he was 28 years old. But boy, did the Blue Jays ever need pitching this year, with A.J. Burnett signing as a free agent with the Yankees, Sean Markham, who's from Excelsior Springs, on the disabled list, Dustin McGowan on the disabled list. They're out with arm surgeries. Jesse Litch, who was so tough on the Royals last year, he's on the DL now. I mean, that's 4 out of your 5 starters last year, either gone or hurt. So they had some holes to fill, and while the pitching hasn't quite matched the hitting, they come in tonight with the 5th best ERA in the league.
Well, a lot of times those independent leagues get real popular when your starters start to go down and you're looking for somebody to kind of fill the gap, like we did with Jose Lima that one time. Lima time came in and pitched really well for us. He came after having a long major league career. He went to play independent ball, and the Royals went and brought him in. He really gave us a big spark.
A huge lift in that 2003 season. You know what a lot of people forget about 2003 is Meyer takes a 2-out walk. Royals got off to that great start, and then they stayed in the race until the middle of September. But in between the great start and the middle of September, the Royals had fallen below 500 in May. And that was about the time that Lima arrived. He had an excellent start against the Giants here at Kauffman Stadium. The Royals took 2 out of 3 from San Francisco, and that's when the Royals got hot again. And way up above over 500, they had a 7.5 game lead going into the All-Star break, but it coincided with Lima time.
I tell you, when I saw the 7.5 lead at the break, I was really excited. I thought that was the year that everything was going to turn around. I knew for certain that going into September they'll have something to play for, but unfortunately the Royals didn't really build on that great year.
.102 pitches for Scott Richmond. Pitching coach Brad Arnsberg wanted to go out there and make sure he was all right before he begins his 4th turn through the batting order. .106 pitches is his season high. In the dirt, ball 1 to Crisp. Coco singled with 2 outs and nobody on in the 5th inning. And then doubled home by David DeJesus. That's the only Royals run tonight. He is 1 for 3. Coco trying to get on base and get David DeJesus up there, who has 2 of the 5 hits, but you get the feeling if DeJesus gets a chance, he's not going to be seeing Scott Richmond. And now Meyer takes off, and that throw is well wide of second base. Meyer steals his 2nd.
Well, we talked yesterday about when a base runner runs, that batter can really hold a catcher back by putting his bat out over the plate and bringing it back. And Coco does a great job. Even though Meyer had a great jump, it really helps their base runner when that batter holds that catcher back by putting that bat out there.
An out base hit could make it a 3-run game. Up the middle, and Scudero throws him out. So Scott Richmond has allowed 1 run, 5 hits through 7 innings. tonight by Panera Bread. Explore a menu full of hearty soups, hand-tossed salads, inventive sandwiches, and savory breakfast items. Panera Bread, where every detail matters. 5-1 Blue Jays with that 4-run fourth inning. Royals just 1 run, 5 hits against Scott Richmond, who's been impressive tonight. Great night at the ballpark, though the temperature's starting to dip now as we're a quarter till 10, but much, much more pleasant than it was last night. As far as the temperature goes, it was a much better night for the Royals on the field, winning 7-1, but still have 6 outs on offense. And Horacio Ramirez, who was sharp in the 7th inning, will pitch to the 8, 9, and 1 hitters. Rod Barajas has had a hand in tonight in the 5-1 lead. A double, an RBI, and a run scored in the 4th inning. He has also walked and flied out to left. 2-0. Barajas got one of his big breaks as a major leaguer against the Royals back in 2004. He was the backup catcher for the Rangers for a young kid coming up by the name of Gerald Laird. And Barajas was kind of labeled as a backup catcher. But Ken Harvey, sliding into home plate at the ballpark in Arlington, badly damaged Gerald Laird's thumb, and he was out for a long time. And Rod Barajas became the starting catcher, and that really turned around his career. Now he spent most of his career as a starter, and he slams one past Tian, but DeJesus is on it quickly and holds Barajas to a long single.
Ramirez got a fastball in on Barajas, and he really hit the ball down the line. David really got on it, and he does a good job to his glove side, getting to that ball and getting it back into second base. So, you know, you think that a lot of guys think that's an easy double. When they look up, he's got the ball and it's already back into second base.
Talking to David earlier this year, remember on opening day in Chicago, he had those 2 great throws from the outfield, and David's one of those guys that ruins it for everyone else by making it look easy going from one outfield position to the other. Snyder gets the bunt down, and now nobody over at first base. That's going to be a bunt single for Snyder, and 2 on, nobody out with the top of the order coming up.
Well, that situation there, Ryan, is strictly a communication situation there. When you know you got the sacrifice bunt coming, then the second baseman, Caspo, and Mike Jacobs have to communicate. Normally, you don't want your first baseman to leave the bag. You only want him to go after the ball if it's down the line, and Caspo can come to second. If it's out in the area where it was, then it's strictly a foot race between the pitcher and the second baseman.
Now Bob McClure out to visit with Ramirez. The Royals might be expecting yet another bunt with Marco Scutaro coming up. But anyway, talking to David DeJesus about moving over to left field and what he really focuses on moving over to left, center field being his natural position, is that he and Rusty Kuntz talking a lot about with the speed of Coco Crisp in center field, the Royals are not worried so much about left center. But David really working hard on cutting those balls off, as he did on the Barajas before it gets into the corner, holding those potential doubles to singles, which then always gives you the chance for a ground ball and a double play. And David's been excellent at that this year.
Well, being left-handed, he's been able to get over there and really make that turn a lot quicker. If he's a right-hander, he got to go over there and backhand that ball, and then it's a little bit more difficult play when it's up against the wall.
So Barajas at second, Snyder at first, Scutaro 0 for 2, but 2 walks and a run scored. Jacobs way in on the right side, just breathing down his neck, and Scutaro bunted it twice, so that's a foul ball.
Well, this is definitely a play designed to get the runner at third base with Jacobs coming in so far. Scutaro really tried to bring the bat back to fake like he was going to swing to try to hold Jacobs back a little bit, and I think it probably threw him off when it came time to bunt the ball. So normally when you see the first baseman in like that, the one thing you don't want to do is bunt the ball to first base. You want to try to bunt the ball to the third baseline.
2 balls, 1 strike, and Ramirez bouncing up the mound to cover the left side.
Yeah, and this play that the Royals are running, Mark is going to stay back to the bag, and Ramirez is going to go straight to the line and take all of that area. And Jacobs got everything from the middle of the diamond, from the middle of the pitcher's mound on, over to first base.
2 balls, 2 strikes, so that may have taken the bunt play away from Scudero.
Well, he's probably trying to think a little too much up there with the runners coming in, but with a lefty throwing the ball down like that, there's really no reason to jump back right in that situation right there. Then really it's a pitch you want is a breaking ball coming in, because that's the easiest ball to bunt down the third baseline.
Royals are not convinced he won't bunt, and he pulls the bat back and slaps it into center field. Barajas doesn't run well, but he will score as Coco had a tough time getting it out of his glove. So the Blue Jays lead 6-1, and Snyder goes first to third.
Well, Scudero does a good job here of faking the bunt. Then that when you fake the bunt, everybody starts coming in. When he draws back, everybody freezes. But by that time, everybody's out of position. But the thing he did there well, Ryan, is hit the ball right over the bag at second base, and no one would be there anyway.
So Ramirez out, Kyle Farnsworth in. It's a 5-run Toronto lead. Rival Sports Bar out in right field, where Joel and Jamie will have Boulevard Royals live. Royals down by 5 in the 8th inning. Kyle Farnsworth is the 4th Royals pitcher tonight. We just received word that Gil Mesh leaving the game in the 4th inning with 2 outs because of lower back stiffness, giving up 5 runs in 3 2/3. Robinson Tejeda 2 1/3 scoreless, and now Rocio Ramirez has allowed a run in the 8th. He's responsible for runners at first and third as Farnsworth pitches to Aaron Hill. John Buck's going to run out of room. Second straight game for Kyle Farnsworth, pitched last night. Scoreless 9th in relief of Jamie Wright, who was in relief of Brian Bannister, who allowed just 1 run, 1 hit in 7 innings to improve to 2-0. Hit hard into left field to Jesus, going to play it on a bounce, and that's going to make it 7-1. Still nobody out in the 8th inning. Well, we hope that Gil is going to be all right and he's going to be reevaluated tomorrow, but it makes sense because it seemed like you and I agree that the stuff was there, but just something wasn't right about Gil tonight.
Right, he just didn't have the command of his fastball or his cutter, and overthrew some of his curveballs where he just couldn't get out over the top and get him to bite down. And thanks the second time he's left with stiffness in the lower back, so it was a good thing that they got him out of the ballgame.
And in typical Gil fashion, I mean, he gutted it out as long as he could. He was in trouble in all 4 innings, but in the first 3 allowed just the 1 run. Got a big out with the bases loaded, 2 outs in the second. Got a great play on defense from Coco Crisp in the 3rd. And then began the 4th inning with a strikeout, overpowering Scott Rowland with a fastball, but before that inning was over, the Blue Jays had scored 4.
Yeah, when a starting pitcher's on the mound, the one thing he doesn't like to do is look in the dugout. So when he looks in the dugout, you know something's not right, and then if he doesn't see anybody coming, then the next thing you do, you call your catcher out, and that sort of signals something's not right about the pitcher on the mound.
Does this swing make our list?
Well, no, not really. That won't make it.
That doesn't make the list?
That won't make it.
I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be at the top of the list. But every list has to have a bottom of the list, too, you know.
He got fooled with that late breaking slider. He was looking for something middle in. You could tell where his body was reacting. But we got about 3 that are that are really legit.
Well, we showed you one, which I think is at the top of the list at the beginning of the broadcast when we were previewing Gil Mesh pitching tonight, and that was his first start and his last pitch of his first start in Chicago, striking out Alexi Ramirez.
Well, you ask any hitter and you get a backup curveball or a backup slider, that's when you get those funny swings.
Wells has 2 hits and 2 RBIs. 2 balls, 1 strike. Through the hole left side, Scutaro going to be waved home, and Jesus is going to play it to 3rd. So it's 8-1 and a 3-run 8th inning. All 3 runs charged to Horacio Ramirez. And now the base runners are the responsibility of Farnsworth. So Wells has driven in 3. The Royals really pitched him well last year. Now, of course, they only saw one another twice. One series in Kansas City, one in Toronto, but Wells hit .083 against the Royals and then was 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts last night. But a hitter as good as Wells eventually is going to get his hits.
Yeah, I think he prefers to pull the ball, and that sometimes gets him in trouble. But if you leave balls up out over the plate middle, that's when he really swings the bat well. And he took a ball in the middle of the night and drove the ball to right center field. That's the play that Coco Crisp made a great play on.
Oh, and 2 on Adam Lind. Been one of the rare Blue Jays that has felt left out tonight. 0 for 4 with a couple of strikeouts, while his teammates have piled up 8 runs on 14 hits. Here's a little fella. Either he is saying peace or saying, I got my second souvenir tonight. You can hardly see him with that jacket on. Still 0-2. This is a good confidence booster for the Blue Jays. Not only did the Royals hold them down last night, but they had been in a bit of a slump before last night, hitting about 200 over their first 3 games. And when you improve as much on offense as the Blue Jays had in the first 3 weeks compared to all of last year, I guess that's always going to be kind of hanging over your head. Is this for real, or are they just hot right now?
Well, they're definitely hot. You look at the numbers. If I was a hitter on that team with double-digit RBI, and my average is up, you know, and you're still in April. I mean, I got to feel pretty good about that.
Well, you made a good point last night that the Blue Jays had the advantage of having 3 hitting coaches, or 3 guys that have been hitting coaches in the big leagues, and manager Cito Gaston, Nick Leyva, the third base coach, and Dwayne Murphy, the first base coach.
I think you also have Gene Tennis, is also another hitting coach for the Blue. Has served in that capacity.
Called the infield fly rule, so Lind is out before Aviles makes the catch. So he is 0 for 5 and 2 outs for Scott Rowland. Blue Jays fans were thrilled last year when Cito Gaston was named manager, because he was such a fan favorite, leading the Blue Jays to back-to-back World Series championships in 1992 and 1993. Of course, it cost John Gibbons his job as Blue Jays manager, who was also popular, but Blue Jays feeling that a move had to be made. Right to Tien. Blue Jays bat 8, they score 3, and now have a 7-run lead. Tough night for the Royals so far, down 8-1 to the bottom of the 8th inning. Don't forget, tomorrow night, Zach Greinke takes the mound for the Royals with his 4-0 record. Brian Talent will pitch for the Blue Jays. Coverage beginning at 6:30. Royals Live with Joel Goldberg and Jamie Quirk. First pitch at 7:10. Greinke trying to improve his record to 5-0. This is Jesse Carlson in relief of Scott Richmond, who is extremely impressive tonight, allowing just 1 run, 5 hits in 7 innings, adding to his already remarkable story.
Well, he had good life on his fastball and that quick breaking slider, and just didn't stay in the middle of the plate. He just stayed off the corners and mixed it up pretty good today.
7 innings for Richmond, a new career high. So Carlson in there to face DeJesus, Tien, and Guillen, and then if anybody gets on, Mike Jacobs. So 3 of the next 4 hitters are left-handed, setting things up perfectly for Jesse Carlson, who has kind of a funky motion and arm angle that can be tough on left-hand batters. One hopper to Aaron Hill. DeJesus is out. He has the RBI tonight in 2 hits. And now Tien 0 for 2 with a walk. We were talking about John Gibbons last half inning, and fired as Blue Jays manager last year. And, you know, talking to him about that, you really get the sincere impression that he understood it was a move that needed to be made, and he's happy for the Blue Jays. Some guys just say the right thing. Other guys, you really get the feeling that they mean it, that a move was made, and he praises Cito Gaston and what a great job he's done with the Blue Jays so far.
Well, Cito was around the Blue Jays. It wasn't like he had gone away and hid. He was still sort of like a special advisor to the general manager, and he visited spring training and did some things around the ball club. But I think a lot of times managers do understand when changes have to be made.
Tien into the gap in left center field. Into second base with his first hit. Continuing to show power to the opposite field.
The thing that he just didn't give, you know, Carlson's got that little lower 3/4 arm angle where he looks like he's throwing from behind you. And the first time he got the fastball on the outside corner, and then he came inside, then he left this pitch out over the plate, and Mark didn't. He just stayed with it and drove it into left center field.
And now ball 1 on Jose Guillen, who's glad to see Scott Richmond out. 0 for 3, 2 strikeouts, and a foul out to the catcher. And that foul out to the catcher is the most painful out for the Royals so far tonight, coming with the bases loaded back in the 3rd inning when it was a 1-0 game. Now he hits this one very high into shallow center field, and Aaron Hill dropped the ball. Vernon Wells was there. It would have been a much easier play for him. And that's an error charge to Hill.
Well, you could tell right away he was having trouble with that ball all the way. It looked like he thought he was under it. Then he threw his hands up to call for it, and he still kept chasing it. So whenever you have to keep chasing the ball to your right or to your left, that means you're not quite sure where it is.
But in his defense, if nobody calls him off, it's his job to keep going for that ball, right?
Well, when he broke to his right, if I'm not mistaken, I saw him throw his right hand up as if he was calling for it, and Vernon Wells backed off, and then it was about tracking the ball at that point, but it hit him in a bad spot.
But the center fielder has priority, right? I mean, if Vernon Wells calls for that ball, it doesn't matter what Aaron Hill is doing with his arm calling him off, right? I mean,
but he can take it as long as he's not set under the ball. You can always call him off. As long as he's moving backwards, sideways, you can definitely come in and take charge of that fly ball.
Two and 0.
So you can tell Vernon Wells coming into right center field. Now the ball starts to move towards center field. So I think in Vernon Wells, he's seeing him. I think he's got it. But like I say, the center field has priority, and he should have called him off. It's a much easier play.
Mike Jacobs 0 for 3 tonight. A couple of strikeouts, grounded out sharply his last time. And now trying to bust out of an 0 for his last 17.
Well, Mike could really use a base hit right here.
2 and 2. 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 2 With one out, Tien doubled. Guillen reached on an error. And now Jacobs 0 for 4 tonight with 3 strikeouts. Caspo has the advantage of moving over to the right side against Carlson. Might be Alberto's last shot at extending his hitting streak. A walk, 2 groundouts tonight, 0 for 2. No swing. Mike Winters, the crew chief, down at first base.
Yeah, Carlson's got he's got that herky-jerky motion where he kind of jumps at you, and that slider comes biting down really hard. And it looks like the right-hand hitters are picking that up late. He got in on Guillen too on that pop-up. So you got to really try to focus out where he's in his release point, and not so much on the body motion.
One and one on Caspo. Carlson, a part of Major League history last year. He was pitching a game against the Rangers in extra innings. Bases loaded, nobody out, and struck out the side. That was the first time a pitcher had done that in extra innings since 1960. You're talking about pretty good stuff if a guy can come in and pull that off. Alex Rios makes the catch in foul ground, and the Royals strand 2 more in the 8th inning. They left 8 on base in 8 innings. Go to the 9th inning. We remind you, coming up after the game, Boulevard Royals Live with Joel Goldberg and Jamie Quirk from Rivals Sports Bar in right field. Highlights and analysis. 8 runs, 14 hits for the Jays tonight. We'll talk about that. You'll hear more from first base coach Rusty Kuntz, who is mic'd up tonight, and preview Zach Greinke going for a 5-0 start tomorrow in Game 3. That is Slugger riding a shark. Your thoughts? Ron Mayhay, 1 pitch, 1 out, getting Lyle Overbay.
Slugger should be in Florida.
That's a Blue Jay mini helmet in the shark's mouth. It's a well-known fact that sharks love Blue Jays. No, I just made that up.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that in the Discovery Channel. Sharks will make their way once a year to Toronto, hoping to feast on a flock of Blue Jays. Slugger aboard a shark. Sharks will eat anything, though. Remember the movie Jaws?
Yes.
When they opened up the shark and a license plate fell out in a bucket.
That movie scared a lot of people when it came out. Nobody wanted to go in the water.
Yeah. I didn't want to get in the bathtub. Barajas 2 doubles, 2 runs scored, and an RBI. A game like this is never fun when you're the losing team, but a couple of guys that the Royals really want to get going, Ron Mayhay and Kyle Farnsworth, can get some work without the game on the line.
Well, the extra work really helps, and this is a stretch where you're going to need your whole staff, and getting through a long season, you're going to need a lot of pitchers, and everybody's going to have the ups and downs, but you want more ups than downs, and if they can get work in games like these, keep their arms sharp, then I think it's going to help them down the road. Ron May pitched some big games for Royals last year.
Good fastball to strike out Barajas. 2 down in the 9th inning. Now the number 9 hitter, Travis Snyder. Singled last time up and scored, 1 for 3. Blue Jays with 2 big innings, a 4-run 4th, a 3-run 8th. Would that be defined as flying open?
Yes. That's looking for something inner half, and it is not there for you, or you're fooled by the motion of Ron Mayhay. Now, we noticed early in the game that Snyder's swing can be a little long at times, and sometimes that's because you do open that front shoulder up a little early.
Well, he is really mixed up with Mayhay's delivery.
Well, these are swings where he really just has no chance to hit the ball right here. Ron's throwing that slider down to the outer half, and he's not tracking it at all.
And nails the outside corner, strikes him out. Impressive 9th inning for Ron Mayhay. You're about to witness one of the greatest comebacks in Royals history.
That guy drives. He drives up here from Wichita.
He's a good dude too. Real friendly, real. The flamethrower Brandon League.
Ron's really thrown well his last 2 outings.
Yeah. Similar outing last time, right? During the Tiger series.
Yeah, I think 3 strikeouts. Easy 1-2-3 top of the 9th with a couple of strikeouts.
now he's looked sharp in his last 2 outings. Going back to the game on Saturday when he struck out the side against the Tigers. So bouncing back after allowing the 3-run home run on Thursday in Cleveland. And now Brandon League is going to come on for the 9th inning. This is obviously not a save situation, but Blue Jays right now don't have a true closer. B.J. Ryan, whom they paid a ton of money to a few years ago to become their closer, has had some arm problems. Tommy John surgery a couple of seasons ago, and he is now back on the disabled list. And this guy can really bring it. We've seen him at 98, 99, 100 miles an hour.
He's got real good sink on his fastball also, both sides of the plate. It's kind of interesting in his windup how he separates the ball in his glove and goes back in. That you don't really see that a lot.
Robinson Tejeda did something similar last year. Remember, we picked up on it that if there was nobody on base, he was okay with separating the ball from his glove. But with a man on base, he kept the ball in his glove in his motion. I have no idea why I remember that, and I haven't seen it this year from him. Buck grounds out, 0 for 4 tonight. So 1 down in the bottom of the 9th inning, and now Mike Aviles. Some pitching coaches, and I'm sure it depends on the guy, prefer, you know, the hand to be close to the glove and keep them in a power position, more compact. And then there are other pitching coaches that really like to see, you know, that arm really come way back like Brandon League just did and get a nice extension before releasing the pitch.
Well, I think a lot of it is that whip, you know, and when he throws lower 3/4, he needs to get it out there to make the ball sink. But what they don't like to see is they don't like to see you spin off, though. They want to keep, even though regardless of which one you use, you still have to have that direct path to the hitter. When you throw across your body like that and jerk the ball to the other side of the plate, then that's not very good.
Man, 95 with some running action to it.
That's what you call with some.
Hang in there, Mike.
That's what you call with some bite. That ball there is seeking a bat. And that's some late movement, too. That's that fastball that 95 right down the middle, and it just kind of jumps in on your hands.
And League comes up with a strikeout, 2 down in the 9th inning. Let's take another look at those last 2 pitches.
But he really runs this fastball right up under Mike's hands, and it really gets him off the plate, and that's a strike on the inside corner. And then he comes back to the other side with a slider off speed and really got him out front. So that's 95 to a lighter slider in that. And then, you know, with Mike's setup with that lower 3/4, that's a pretty tough pitch.
Mitch Meyer, a single, a walk, and a stolen base tonight. And then going off speed. So you get the hitter with that velocity thinking they have to start the swing soon. And then he comes back with a changeup. At a Double-A All-Star game in 2004, Brandon League was clocked at 102 miles an hour. How many kilometers an hour is that, Frank?
Well, if I was in Germany, I could tell you.
Royals down in order in the 9th inning. The Blue Jays even the series after the Royals win last night 7-1. The Blue Jays return the favor and win tonight 8-1. 4-run 4th inning, 3-run 8th. And an impressive start for right-hander Scott Richmond, who goes a career-high 7 innings, allows 1 run on 5 hits. And Cito Gaston's Blue Jays now have a 15-7 record. They were tied for first place in the American League East coming in. Our sprint, you call it. The Blue Jays' effort tonight didn't seem to convince the fans, however, that the Blue Jays are going to win the division, so they're going to have to continue to prove themselves this season despite their great start. Well, one of the great things about this game, Frank, you have a great game like you did last night. You got to forget about it the next night, but then you also get to forget about this one.
You forget